Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy. We are here to discuss Loki. We're up to episode 4 now. This is, of course, our spoiler discussion series, the Nexus event. So we're a little over halfway now. We've got 2 episodes left. And as you can see, we are joined with another guest tonight with the return of Neel from George's Marvel retrospective. By popular demand, it's like reuniting the old crew, isn't it? It's like, well, we've done Fast and Furious. It's like reuniting family almost. But how do you feel tonight?
I think I'm the only one who actually demanded it, to be honest with you.
I think it's one of them where we don't have the names at the bottom, but we should just make every guest have like variant hashtag number. And that'd be a really sad but amazing way to keep doing these. But no, we're here to talk Loki. I'm very excited this week. This week, very exciting.
It was a good one.
Last week. Yeah, we'll get into it. We'll get into it. That's the only reason we're here, to get into it. And as usual, guys, we want you to comment below your thoughts. I guess this week we can say your theories and all that kind of stuff. A lot happened. There was a lot to take in. I had to rewind to double check I hadn't missed something. So this is one of those episodes where we want you to, of course, comment everything. This is a spoiler discussion. Nothing is off the table. Comment whatever you want about this series. If you like it, if you dislike it, anything on those ways, we'll bring them up on the screen throughout. If it's something about later on, we'll bring them up around that segment. So do obviously get involved. And as we always say, our social media, if you want to find us, Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, letterboxd.com/Cinema Savvy. And we have a link to the TeePublic store in the description below. We don't have any green Loki shirts, but maybe one day, because Neel is wearing green as well. A little dig to our pre live stream conversation, but we're not doing it. Is it blue or green thing tonight? I don't even know. We'll start with normal. Neel, this first I've had you on Loki. So, just for people at home, just so they don't know where we're at, what are your thoughts on the first couple of episodes so far?
So it's been interesting. I think this has been the strongest episode so far. It's the first 3 very much felt as if it was more of a caper, a bit more fun. This one definitely changed it up a gear and turned up the emotional cards a bit more. I think it's been fantastic. It's been completely unpredictable. This is a show that needed to be unpredictable because that's exactly what Loki is. They're going all sorts of ways with it, and there's no way of knowing what they're going to do next. So I think they've done really well, and I was against them doing this at first because obviously Loki dies in Infinity War. Spoiler alert. But it's one of those things that they've done it so well from when he got away in Endgame and he's reappeared here, that it's so fantastic, and it's great to see Hiddleston in this role again. It's probably his best film role, and I'm glad to see more of him. I can't wait to see how it ends, and if it does end, because they're apparently doing another season. But with today's episode, it was phenomenal. So much to take in. And it kind of felt like there's just going to be so much more in the next 2 episodes. I've loved every episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we all knew from last week that it was going to pick up again at some point, and this would probably be the week to do it. I think early rumors and stuff, like everyone kept saying episode 4 was the one where everything happened, and everything pretty much did happen. There's a lot of questions that we still have, especially this is our first mid-credits scene that we've had in the show so far, which has just left us reeling with questions, which we'll get to that later on. But I was quite late to watching this one today. Usually I'm pretty on it, but this week everyone seemed to have watched it. I was staying off social media, which I never usually do, but when I started to see sort of like little posts here and there in my newsfeed, I thought, right, I best stay away from this thing, because I heard that it was like a cataclysmic ending, like something major happened. And George, I was messaging you. I was like, does Mephisto finally show up? Does Thanos? What's going on with this thing? Who's coming back? It's clearly going to be a character that's coming back. And it wasn't that. So my opinions on this episode, I think that it's probably the most action-packed episode. It's the one where the most questions are answered, and it kind of puts things a little bit more in context while still raising questions in and of itself. I think this episode's probably tied with the first episode for me in being my favorite, because the first one was very exposition heavy, but I loved that the dialogue back and forth between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston. I still think Owen Wilson is the strongest thing in this series, and well, we'll talk about what happens to Owen Wilson later on, but I guess we've got to kick off from the opening scene, really. And this was like me excitedly messaging you, George, when I was like, oh my God, we're in Asgard. We're kicking off with Asgard, and it looks absolutely incredible. Even we're on a TV budget, it just looks right out of the films. I love Asgard. And it's like a young Sylvie, and we get a completely sort of like recontextualization of her as a character, because we got a bit of her personality and she sort of came into her own a little bit last week through, you know, lots of dialogue, but we actually get a backstory with this one, and it turns her into a really sympathetic villain. Now, with a Loki kind of character, you can never trust them wholeheartedly, so maybe they are going to sort of like play up the heartstrings and this really sort of sad emotional past that she has on Asgard, but then she's going to have some kind of agenda by the end of it and betray someone. And I still think it's probably going to go in that way, because I think that if you have the god of mischief and the goddess of mischief in a show, and you kind of both make them protagonists by the end of it, inherently good guys, I think maybe Tom Hiddleston can tend that way because he's had more development up until this point. But I think she's going to do something at the end that's still going to betray them all.
I mean, it's quite mad when you think that. I mean, I don't want to get all scientific and canony and the Loki. How was Loki? Like thousands of years old? I'm not going to say we need to know the age of Sylvie, but it's like she's been like hunted down like her entire life basically, and it's really quite. I mean, for a start, it was great to be like an ask. I was like, oh my god, we're going to get a flashback. I was like, no way can you afford to bring back Odin and Thor. So who's it going to be? And I was like, oh no, young Sylvie. And right off the bat, it set you off. I was like, okay, this is obviously what's happened. Where we get more development as the show goes on, but it's one of those openings where I think you can watch that and you're in with the character. I'm not saying it works as a short film, but off that scene, you can understand her motives, what we've learned from her so far, and all that can come together. And what I loved with this show is the whole TVA stuff, which I guess we'll get to in a bit, but painting them as the bad guys right away again, I think makes it easier for the audience to align to have an inkling of where things are going and why also she's got this agenda with the Timekeepers. Why have they controlled her life up to this point? So I think it's a really smart way to lead up to a big revelation later on. But I thought it was a great opening scene. And the other thing is, whenever I watch the show, I get the theme song stuck in my head like all day, and it just keeps like ringing through, and it's still there. It's been like 12 hours now, but it's one of them where I think it was the perfect way to kickstart tonight.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was really surprised when I saw Asgard, and I did wonder where they were going to go with it. So it's really intriguing to see what they've done with this character. And as you said, like there's now been a bit more development, whereas before she was a bit just, you know, she was mischievous, she was kind of annoying, but quite fun. But now we know a lot more about her. I'm hoping that it doesn't end up with her as a hero or what have you. And I did enjoy the connection between the two of them today, but I think that it will sort of go into, you know, maybe she'll try and take over the TVA at some point still, but we don't know. I thought it was a really, really good start. It was really surprising, but yeah, absolutely. I love seeing Asgard again. It was great. It's not like my favorite Marvel set piece or set or what have you, because it's, you know, it's a very Flash, it's a bit over the top, but it was nice to see again, because obviously it doesn't exist anymore, not in that sense anyway. Yeah,
I think the one thing from the intro, and I messaged you, I kind of did like a running commentary for at least the first 10 minutes, and then I got like really engrossed in the episode. It was quite miraculous. Like she steals like the time, I don't even know what you'd call it, like the time displacement thing, the portal generator thing, and she just immediately knows how to use it. Like, you know, at least when Loki had it and like that reversing, rewinding thing, he was kind of messing with it and he didn't really know what he was doing. This little girl whose whole existence has been on Asgard, that, you know, they are technologically minded, but they don't have anything like that they have in the TVA. Just snatches it, hits a couple of buttons on, and, you know, she's away and she's where she needs to be. So I don't know, that felt a bit quick. That was the kind of like the only problem I sort of had from the offset with that. But right after that, you know, we pick up where we left off, and we knew that it was a big cliffhanger last week where, you know, they're trapped on this planet that's about to be completely leveled by an apocalypse. It's kind of like a TV thing as well, where you put someone in like a really dire situation in like the ending, but, you know, pretty much within like the first 5 minutes or so of the next episode, they're going to get out of it scot-free. And it's like a really quick tie-up of that thing, like quick introduction to it. And it's kind of the same with this, in that they just kind of get brought back via the portals back to the TVA. But what follows was awesome. So each of them are sort of divided up and put into an interrogation, and we don't really see Sylvie's interrogation. She's just kind of kept under wraps, kept watched, but we do get to see Loki's interrogation, and I thought this was incredible. So we're back to time loops. Reminded me of Doctor Strange, the ending with Dormammu caught in the infinite time loop. And we get the return. Like, this was the point that we get a return of a character. I thought this was going to be the mid-credit scene. It's at this point we get the return of Sif. From obviously it's like Sif from back in the day. This is like a kind of a flashback scenario that happened ages ago. But she's got a foot in the door again in the MCU. So I think she's meant to be in Thor Love and Thunder, I believe. So hopefully they've got an explanation as to where she's been all this time. It was great seeing her back again. And I thought this was one of the best moments. You know, I have talked about how I feel like Loki's been nerfed a little bit. I would like to see him, you know, his prowess in combat and using more of his magic and skills and everything like that. But what I have loved from the show so far is really humanizing him. And it is almost like a 6-episode therapy for Loki, where he gets to reflect on all of his wrongdoings and hopefully come out of it with some kind of development by the end of it. Because I think if he does go back to how he was, I think that would do a disservice to the show, because I think the characterization stuff that they've done with Loki's fantastic. The stuff where he was, you know, mourning the loss of his homeworld and his people and all the events that happened in his mother. And this whole scenario where he's caught in this Groundhog Day loop, but by the end of it, he's genuine. You can tell that he's genuine about it as well, where he apologizes and he's finally found like a sense of clarity. He knows that he's a narcissist. He knows that he's a horrible person. And more importantly, he knows the reason why he's acting like that. So I love that. I loved seeing Sif again, but I thought that was a really cleverly handled, a really interesting original way to do an interrogation scene as well, like caught in that purgatory.
I mean, I would have took an Owen Wilson, Heath Ledger Joker interrogation scene if we really needed to. Yeah. But bringing in Lady Sif, listen, I mean, she has been gone for so long. It's become this running joke. I know she popped up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., didn't she, or something like that. And we know she's coming back next year. And I was like, okay, how is some things... When you're at a place like that, the TV, you don't want a boring normal interrogation scene. Episode 1 we have the great Here's Your Life, playing all that kind of stuff. It's not really an interrogation, but more a conversation. I was like, okay... You can't really play clips from his future again. It's like, what can you do that's maybe a bit different than just talking? And the time loop was great. And I think once you clock it the second time, it's just come back around. It's like, that is actually quite an incredible way to torture someone. And again, it goes back to, I hadn't even thought of Doctor Strange actually until you said it, Chris, but it's a really lovely way to go back to it. But also it works for Loki's character, because that is somebody that obviously he wronged in his past that deep down he did care about. He was kind of a part of their crew in the first Thor film. He used to like chill out with them for a little bit, and he called them his friends and stuff. So it was a really nice way to be able to bring back, and it makes sense. It didn't feel like, oh, here's a scene of us bringing back a character for the sake of it. It felt like that would actually make sense, that in his past, that's someone that would have likely been there, and that's someone that he cares about. So I really enjoyed them bringing her back, and I just think for what it eventually leads up to as well, with where you've got one interrogation happening, obviously we get little bits of the other, which is completely different as well. I just thought it was a different way for them to do it. And then obviously Owen Wilson steps in at the right time, because that's been his plan. He's basically just gone there to break Loki, and I think it's a really smart way of doing it. And the big thing is we got Owen Wilson back today. I think last week we missed him. I think the series missed him, not just probably us actually, but I think he's quite integral to the show for me. And he I don't want to say brightens up every scene, but his character by far is one of the most interesting thing going on.
The whole thing with Lady Sif was great. I thought what they were going to do was do like a different character each time, and so like just keep bringing back like not in a time loop in the way that they did. I thought it would be like maybe a different one of the Warriors 3 or what have you. But I suppose they brought back like maybe just do like one at a time. Excuse me. But I suppose with Lady Sif, like we've not seen her in such a long time, not since Thor 2, I think. I don't think. Probably not since
my God, has it been that long? Jesus Christ.
I think so, yeah. I can't remember seeing it. Yeah. And like right, one of the worst MCU films. That's so sad. I think that was the first video I did on here, funnily enough. So it was really, really good seeing him. I thought it was a really smart psychologically break him down in the end, which they did incredibly well. Like Hiddleston is in top form in this role, as I said before, and I think that it shows so much in this episode, even like more so than before. Like before, the back and forth between him and Owen Wilson has been fantastic, especially that first episode. But today, you really saw that emotional side, and it was just fantastic to see. The way they did the interrogation was very good, and I agree. I think Owen Wilson being in this episode was fantastic. He was definitely missed in the last one. I totally agree with that. Their back and forth, no matter what, is always very funny, because he knows what Loki's about. He knows he knows him better than he realizes, or than Loki realizes, and that's what I love because you can kind of play off him quite well. It was really really good. I'm curious to see what they do with what's happened to Owen Wilson and Loki, but we'll see.
Yeah, I just think this episode was paced a lot better as well, partially down to Owen Wilson as well. The fact that it kept cutting back between, spending time with Hiddleston, which you absolutely need to, but then also cutting to Owen Wilson exclusively and sort of seeing his perspective on things as he goes about the TVA. Last week, I don't know if it was just probably a lot of channels compared it to an episode of Doctor Who, and I think just because you had this very much a bottle episode where it was these two characters going off on a space adventure and trying to save the day and getting into like wacky hijinks, it kind of lost that flow and it lost that intrigue. So it was so great to be back in the TVA because I honestly think it's probably one of my favorite environments or locations in the MCU, or certainly one of the most interesting ones, definitely. Maybe not in terms of like a visual, but just it was reminding me of something when I was watching it today, and that's partially down to some of the music choices they picked for the end credit songs as well. There's almost like a sense of nostalgia. I don't know what decade the songs came out. It's almost like a 50s or 60s kind of. There's some kind of like older vibe to the entire show in the aesthetic, which I really like. I think it was reminding me of BioShock a little bit in that you've got this sort of old-timey futuristic sci-fi place with like old music included in it, but there's like a nefarious corporation or government that's running the whole thing, and there's a lot more under the surface than initially you think. So I was really getting the BioShock vibes from this, and that's especially down to the fact that we get the revelation about the TVA. I think all of us probably guessed that the TVA was up to no good and that they would eventually become the bad guys in some way, or there'd be more than meets the eye with them, and we kind of get it all laid out. Maybe there's even more to lay out in the next two episodes, but we kind of get everything in this one, in that everyone who populates the TVA, I don't know if this actually includes Renslayer. I don't know if she was also a variant or if she was just kind of there from the dawn of time, but everyone who populates it, including Owen Wilson, they were all kidnapped from different parts of time and brought to work into the TVA. And it does make you think back to the earlier episodes, because I know that it was actually kind of a heartbreaking line. I do think Owen Wilson's going to come back. I don't think he's completely gone out of the show. I definitely think he's going to come back. But we talks about the jet ski, and that was a beautiful callback to, was it like episode 1 or 2 where he talked about that? So yeah, really good revelation. But one thing that does annoy me, and I guess this is more on the Timekeepers scene, I don't like how nerfed the TVA soldiers are. Like, they should be prepared for anything, any breach in security. They're there. They run a tight ship. They've got to preserve the sacred timeline, and they just get taken out so easily. They're like stormtroopers in Star Wars or something. It's kind of insulting how bad they are, really.
It was one of those with me where I think when you're watching it, even beforehand when they go out to the prisons, you're like, oh, I wonder who all the other prisoners are going to be. Then it's obviously an interrogation room. It's none of them. I'm really curious to know more about the TVA. Like, they just seem fascinating as a company, as a concept, as what they're trying to do with them. And I think it's about those workings. But yeah, the guys of, like, if you're not seeing their face, it's the stormtrooper. Was it Red Shirts is the nickname, isn't it? It's that faceless army. The only two important ones is Renslayer, as you said, and then we've got the other one who I don't know the name of, who turns good at the end, who has that thing, and it's kind of there, like, there's no threat of them, so you can go into all these scenes sort of not realizing there's going to be a problem, but they're going to come out fine. Which is why I think we did have those big moments today, which we'll get to, and I think that's where they came as the shock. Is it felt like there was actual fate for some people, but the whole concept of all of them being stolen, their mind swipes, I love that, and I think it's going back to what he said, that is that very much that old feel, that 50s. I reckon they've nabbed Owen Wilson out the 50s. I know he's mentioned jet skis, but the whole design of him, from the grey hair to the mustache, everything. I would love it for him to be some old school 50s sort of One Division type thing, because I think Owen Wilson's been great in this, and it's his mannerisms with it all, that he doesn't know how long he's been there, and he's so intrigued by the whole jet ski concept. I'm sure it'll have a payoff deeper down the line. We'll probably find out, probably a joke or something, or maybe he'll get to go on one. But we have unfortunately been told that he isn't going to be saying the word "wow" in any of the series, which is a massive shame.
Might be too on the nose. We can Samuel Jackson say "motherfucker," but we can't have Owen Wilson say "wow," right? That's the kind of world that we live in.
I need to
before
go
he
there.
said fucker, honestly.
Yeah. But then again, to be fair, it took them, 10 years to let Sam Jackson say that? So maybe that was what they were saying. Like, we had to give him 10 years to say his catchphrase. But there was a Pulp Fiction reference also in Winter Soldier. But I just love what's going on with them. And I think if they're all variants, then obviously, it's quite brutal. That girl was killed. I mean, she probably hasn't been killed. But the one when they're like showing the CCTV, and it's kind of like it just stops. And for some reason, she's looking in the wrong corner. I don't know. I always laugh at stuff like that. But, I would give them this for a change. It's a CCTV that's not an actual clip from a pre-existing film or something we've seen before. Does it actually look like an actual what a CCTV would be? But I just loved everything that we know they're dodgy, and we're learning at every couple of minutes how much worse it is, and it all leads up to the big, I guess, non-reveal, which we'll get to the Timekeepers.
What happened to Owen Wilson was, I screamed when I watched it. I was genuinely surprised. I could not believe it. I may have cried. I can't remember. But it was genuinely surprising, and like I want him to come back, but I think it hit so hard that I kind of don't. If you know what I mean? It just like he's so good in it, and I'm not the biggest Owen Wilson fan, I must admit, but I think he's very, very good in this. But if it doesn't stick, I'll be happy to see him again. But if it does, then it wouldn't bother me too much because it just hit so well, and it was done incredibly well. The jet ski thing I love, and I just looked it up. Jet skis were invented in 1973, so maybe from like 70s. Yeah. So then, like that's where like that whole like the perfect marriage between all that was happened. So you might be from the 70s. We don't know, but the revelation that they're all variants is incredible. I assumed there would be something because it kind of there was something going on, something wasn't quite right. There was just too many unanswered questions. So I wasn't too surprised to hear something like that. But it was really, really great to hear something as shocking as that, because it could have been really minor, but that's quite a big thing that everyone in the TVA they've essentially been kidnapped by whoever the Timekeepers are or whoever's actually running the TVA, but don't really know. It's interesting, and I'm curious to see where they're going to go with it now that they revealed this truth about the TVA and about the Timekeepers themselves. I like the fact that they're showing that people within the organization have their own conscience. They're not sort of just being controlled by the TVA. They've been taken. Obviously, they don't know they've been taken until now, but they're kind of trying to make their own decisions as well. So it's the people within the situation in the organization are fighting back, which I love to see, and I want to see a lot more of that.
Yeah, I love the sense of indoctrination that everyone's sort of been subject to. And, God knows how many years they've been stuck down there. They always say that time works differently in the TVA. So we have our realm of perception, we don't know how long they've been down there. They could have been down there for millennia for all we know, or even longer. And I love the scene where you've got Owen Wilson. I think it's in the scene where he swipes the phone maybe, and he has the heart-to-heart with Renslayer. And she almost goes on this rehearsed, scripted spiel about why they're doing what they're doing and why preserving the sacred time. Like, it's almost like she gets up on a podium and there's like dramatic, emotional music playing behind her. It's like a complete American Psycho moment. And I loved seeing that side to her, and Owen Wilson's reaction to that, realizing that the jargon that he's been fed constantly his whole life is it's a facade, really. He's definitely coming back. I don't think that his death was emotional enough. It was played more for shock value than for that dramatic moment. But and this isn't really a fault of this show in particular, although it does kind of keep killing Loki. Even in this, Loki dies again and comes back straight afterwards. This is more just sort of like the MCU as a whole, but I guess this is also like the comic books too. It's killed the idea of death for me. I can see a character die in this series now, and just very on rare occasion, obviously like Iron Man's an exception, we hope, unless they find a way to bring Robert Downey Jr. back. And even in that film, he dies and then he's on a hologram like 5 minutes after. So they still keep him around in a way. I can't get invested when I see a character die. I don't really get shocked or emotional at it because I know that by the end they're going to come back, or in the case of Loki, in the very next scene, he's going to be back and he's going to be fine. There was a fleeting moment, though, where I thought, is this their way of getting rid of Tom Hiddleston and instating Sylvie as the new Loki? It was like a fraction of a second. I thought, well, no, they're not getting rid of Tom Hiddleston, especially the fact that they've got a second series lined up. I think fans would have rioted if that had have happened, in all honesty. But yeah, no, I loved all the TVA stuff. And I guess sort of like the cherry on top of the cake was finally getting into the double doors to see the Timekeepers. I'm going to compare this to Iron Man 3 with the Mandarin. Now, this is a twist done right for me. It's that they build this bravado up, and you know, it is like the Mandarin thing. You see glimpses, you hear whispers of the Timekeepers, the mystical Timekeepers, and no one can be granted an audience with them. And we get the statues and like the monolithic, almost worshipping of these deities. Then we finally get to see them, and they look fantastic. I just want to say that I love the designs of them. I look how different they are. CGI looked a bit ropey on the green one, I will say that. But in terms of the conceptual designs, I loved the room. I loved everything about it. But it's the Wizard of Oz moment, isn't it? It's the man behind the curtain, and it's all a lie and everything that everyone knows. So, and they're like robots, they're androids. And then you have the question, well, who made them? So, you know, if that's going to be their way of putting the Timekeepers in the MCU, but kind of backpedal as well, that they're actually robots. Maybe the real Timekeepers are out there, and this is just like a depiction of them. I honestly don't know the Timekeepers from the comic books, so I don't know if they're prevalent in the comic books, if they are a thing. I'm assuming they are, or how accurate this is in their depiction of that. But if this is their way of at least including them in some way, I'm fine with the reveal and the twist that they're not real in the context of the TVA.
I'm on such a weird one with this. When we got that amazing scene at the start, it's like a darkness room, right? And you get like the glints of their eyes on this podium. You're like, oh god, this is gonna be incredible. And then later on, when we get to it, and they open the doors, I was like, this looks like something off Sesame Street. I was for a couple of moments.
I love Sesame Street, man. It was awesome.
There's nothing wrong with Sesame Street, but I don't want to see it in Loki. I know we're getting the Bart Simpson thing next week, which I'm actually pretty down for, but.
What did you want then? They're all aliens. They're all different alien people, right?
They just look like something we've seen on like Channel 4 when we were like 5 years old. And I was like, is this your Timekeepers that you've hyped up? And I hated the designs. And I'll say this because obviously the show proved me wrong straight away. And I was like, these look, and they start like jabbering and talking with each other. And I was like, what is this?
It's like Star Wars prequels a little bit, wasn't it? Like just
even they, but like their heads were like wobbling as they'd speak to them, wouldn't they? Mm-hmm. Kind of like, the Star Wars man, the Wonga, that guy from Tatooine. And I just kind of was like, what's going on? And I was so confused for not confused, but I was just like, I was in bewilderment. So I was so excited to see him. And obviously they chopped it off and it was like, oh, it's a robot. And I was like, thank God for that. I was like, because I just thought that it's awful. But I was like, now I've seen it and like, I love it now because they're robots. It's not them. But it's whoever is pulling this, because also, obviously, I'm not going to lie, we're bringing back this program's Mephisto. When they showed them, I was like, oh, that's not Kang. And now someone is pulling the strings behind the scenes. Who knows? And I think Kang was married to Renslayer in some form of the original comics. And, you know, we know that Marvel MCU doesn't ever have to follow the comics. We've chosen not to. They have it some things, they have in others. I don't care. There's a bloody billion different comics at this rate of Marvel. But I'm now, as you said, Wizard of Oz things, who is in control? And I think that's what the fascination that, you know, that's a big moment within itself, let alone like you've just killed Owen Wilson and you're about to kill Loki. But I think the moment that sold it for me was Sylvie's, you know, she's not waited her entire life at the moment, but her plan for years had been to get into that room to kill them. And they're robots, and she's now back to square one. And that's what I loved. And it goes back to that scene at the very beginning. She's made that her life's work. And now she doesn't have the faintest clue what to do, who they are. And it just leaves this mystery wide open for the next few weeks. And I absolutely love it. I'm glad we didn't get a reveal of who it might be. And maybe we'll get it next week. I can imagine a cliffhanger for next week, maybe, or something like that. But certainly, I see the Iron Man 3 comparison. But I do love Iron Man 3, so I'll give it that. I think it worked as a great twist, though. I don't think, because it's been, 4 episodes in, and those Timekeepers have been hyped up, I think it's been very smart. But if it had been episode 1 or 2 and you'd have seen them, wouldn't have worked. But to get it today, the big build-up, again, having killed Owen Wilson, you want the answers, and it's left us with more questions, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm here for it as well. I'm with you, George. I wasn't a big fan of the design, so I'm quite glad that they were not real. So Yeah, it was. It did feel a little too easy to get into that room as well. I felt like that would have been safe for maybe the last episode if they were real. So I'm not really sure. And again, I don't know anything about them, and this is the first time I think I've heard of them or seen them. So I'm curious to see who is actually in control. That whole scene was good, but someone mentioned it before. I feel like the agents would have been a lot more prepared in terms of fighting off any sort of enemy who came into that room. But I suppose if they're not real, they're not going to be too fussed. I don't know. It's a funny one, because if you lose, then they're probably the person who's in that room is probably going to kill you. So, but then they're kind of defending nothing in a way. So it's a bit of a strange one.
To defend the facade, though, you would think that there would be more people in the room, wouldn't you? Just in case someone did get in there and tried to depose them, there'd be prevention there to stop that from happening.
Yeah, you think that. Yeah, essentially, yeah. I feel like they could have done a lot more, which is kind of a shame. But the potential death of Owen Wilson was shocking. But when it happened to Loki, it just didn't hit, because obviously they're not going to just. They're not going to kill Loki in a Loki series. It's not going to kill him off at all in something like this. He's far too popular, and he's too good in this role. I'm just curious. I want to see who is in control, and I do wonder if they're going to go with like someone we either know or someone who's really popular in the comics, because it's usually one or the other when it comes to these sorts of reveals. So I can't see that happening until probably episode 6, or if they do it, they'll do like they've done in WandaVision and in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like something big happens in episode 5, which isn't action heavy. It's more sort of story, plot, and conversation heavy, and then the action will happen in episode 6. So I think that's more likely.
Yeah, and I think like the array of new characters that we're introduced to in the mid-credit scene is going to suggest that it is going to be more of an exposition-filled setting up for that final act, which will be your last episode. I do want to bring up that comment, though, from, I'm guessing it's BioVari, I'm going to say. I'm probably pronouncing that horribly. Going back to the Timekeepers, they look like animatronics in a ride on an amusement park. I think that was the whole idea. I will say, though, because they are animatronics, I would have preferred if they'd have been physical things like a puppet or someone in costume and makeup or something, because you have these very digital. I didn't even think the CGI was that great on one of them, at least, like the green dude. And then when you have that physical head that she's holding at the end, it's like, well, I would have preferred if you'd have made them physical animatronics in a way, maybe with some like digital alterations here and there. But I think I just love the idea of them. I love wacky sort of like mythology, alien shit like that. So I was cool with it. I was fine with the designs and the voices and everything like that with it personally. The one thing that I didn't like, though, and I've already referred to this, so I'm not going to like mention the point for too long, was the fight scene. I thought was terribly choreographed, where you've got that group fight scene. It reminded me actually in terms of how the attack pattern of everyone. And George is going to hate me because I know he loves this scene, but in The Last Jedi, the Praetorian Guards, how everyone waits for their mark. It's like, okay, I'm going to attack now and retreat. And they could just all swamp them and just attack at once. And it's like, no, it's going to be this very, stuntman 1 goes in first and I wait 2 seconds and I'm going to go in for an attack. It felt a little bit like that. It didn't feel like an engaging action scene. Also, the fact that there's like 2 guards in that room. You needed like floods of people coming in. You needed the moment from Fast 9 where like 200 people attacked Dom. You needed that scene essentially, in my opinion. But I think it kind of peaked for me at the Timekeepers reveal, but like the actual fight scene, I didn't particularly care for at the end.
I was in this weird trance where when they're, because the problem with the fight is that they're going to win. And that's not really a bad thing, because every single show, film, whatever, is always going to have that when it's episode 4 out of 6, it's not a final duel or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Precisely what's going to happen. And it was kind of, okay, get to it. And the one bit I loved was, because I was getting really angry, was Loki about to confess that he likes her? Like, I was kind of really curious for a second. Like, it's like, does that work? Like, can that? I mean, I don't know how multiverses work, but is it being in love with yourself? I don't really know. But
They're different
I
people,
love-
though. So would that still
Yeah,
be a
this
love
is
story,
it,
or would
this
that
is it.
essentially be masturbation at that point? I mean, I don't know. You got to put that to the academics in that question. I think.
exactly. Like somewhere there's a multiverse expert that can correct us, but yeah, it's like different people, different timelines. So I was just kind of perplexed by the whole thing. I mean, it made sense because that's the whole point of episode 2 was to build up to it. That the thing at episode 1 when they created I mean, I'm going to say this was the stupidest episode, right? Because they were talking and having feelings. That was the variance in the apocalypse that stood out, so they couldn't save them. I'll let it slide for the first 2 minutes. Yeah, it's just like let's get rid of last week's episodes. Let's move on. So I'm fine. I'm fine with that. But I love the fact they go from like mid sentence. So like, they call it pruning him, don't they? All I can think of is prune face from Robot Chicken now. But I thought, wow, I was like, exact same as you, Chris. For a brief second, I thought, oh my god, like Sylvie's the main character, and then I realized that a bit like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, every single bit of promotional material in that series had Sam throwing the shield at the tree, didn't it? And that was everywhere. And that was what, episode 5 or 6. And this one's got Loki with what looks like the Mongolians behind him, doing that sort of stance with his arms out. I was like, no, we're safe because of marketing. And this is where this is really off topic, but random. I'm gonna say once again, fair play to WandaVision for not pissing about marketing. Everything they showed was in those first couple of episodes. And we're in another show where we've got 6 episodes and we've seen footage from episode 6 again. It's very pathetic for me to moan. But I'm just kind of like, can you not just like cut it off at 2 or 3 episodes? Like you have enough footage to make good trailers without needing something else. And that's the side piece. But going for Loki mid-sentence, I thought was quite, again, the shock factor. We've had Owen Wilson go. Do you think that's your big moment for the day? Then you got the Timekeeper operation. Then you got Loki disintegrating. Then you realise straight away that, okay, it's a transporter. And before we went live, me and Chris were saying we don't know what film it is or TV show. There is something where the pair of us have seen where someone is zapped by a laser of some kind and everyone thinks they're dead, but they always end up waking up somewhere else and have been transported. And I can't keep thinking about it because I don't know what the show is or film is. It's really annoying me that I feel like I've seen it loads before and I just don't know.
Hopefully someone can help us out in the comments, maybe. If you know what we're talking about, please.
First of all, I love myself, so I can see Loki loving himself occasionally in a masturbatory way, but we won't get into that. You know, it's a private conversation for later. I found that a little jarring, I must say. I didn't think it would go that way, that he was going to potentially confess his feelings for her. And I wasn't sure if that was, I don't know. That I didn't really agree with that bit. And as fantastic as this episode was, it does have its flaws, and I think that's one of them. And I think that the design of the Timekeepers wasn't great. But yeah, the fight scene was not good. It felt like they were just waiting for them to get into stance and then attack, because you just expect people to start fighting because if they're in that room and they've already started some sort of shit. They should be, these are highly skilled, trained agents. They should be on them straight away, but they weren't at all, which is a shame. I think, by and large, with some of the like actiony fight scenes we've seen, they've been really, really good. I think they've been well choreographed from what I remember. So it's just a shame to see this.
You've got tropes in there as well, haven't you? Like where we're going to turn our back on Renslayer and have this conversation that, oh no, she got up and stabbed someone. It's, come on. Like, how many times are we going to do this?
We saw that she was just knocked out. She wasn't dead. So you knew that something was going to happen. It's like, don't do that. It's such a typical boring trope. But yeah, as George, I think you said, like there's these sorts of tropes in every single film, TV show that we see, just like, getting them out of peril 5 minutes into an episode where there was like a cliffhanger of the episode before. So yeah, that makes sense. I'm curious to see where they're going to go with this now. We've seen the mid-credit scene as well. It's frustrating because I want to know more. And there's so many questions still not answered. I'm curious where certain characters are. There was a character, I feel like she went missing. It was It was Hunter B-15. I feel like I missed that. What happened to her during that scene?
She gets
she
knocked
threw a
out,
weapon.
I think, doesn't
she? Gets
she?
knocked out. Okay.
I think she gets knocked out. You see her sort of like enter this room, and then I think she's just taken out really quickly. I can't remember actually now. I only watched it a few hours ago. Short-term memory loss.
Because I watched it, I immediately forgot because she threw a weapon. I think Sylvie caught it.
That was right.
And then I can't remember what happened after that.
I think she was knocked out straight after that, I think,
right.
if I remember rightly. But the love thing, I think that it was too quick to do it. I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to humanize Loki, but we had one episode of sort of like real connection with the two characters, with Sylvie and Loki, and I just saw it as kind of like a platonic friendship kind of thing, maybe like a bit of flirtatious banter here and there, but nothing more than that. I think if we go in the route of, he's going in for like all the strings swell and he's going in for the romantic kiss, I'm not buying it at this moment. It's a little bit like the Raylo kiss at the end of 9. It's just like, I see what you're trying to do, but it doesn't feel earned at this point from everything that we've seen before. Maybe if they'd have sort of like left it at the end of episode 6, or maybe it's just a thing, a box tick. We need a love story in this. We need a romantic angle, but I don't know if it would be that because, Marvel sort of like have control over everything. And I don't think they've really shoehorned in many romantic plots. Actually, now I'm thinking about Avengers Age of Ultron. Yeah, that was in there, wasn't it? A few others. Oh, yeah, maybe they do then. Maybe they like their love stories. Who knows? Or maybe they thought everyone loved the romance angle of WandaVision, but that actually worked for that. And that was the whole point of that show, was because of that. I don't know why it was in there, but even if they do hook up, I don't think I'm going to buy it at all, because I just don't see, when those actors are on screen together, I don't get that chemistry in that way. They're like a kindred spirit, but it's more of a friendship than a romance. So hopefully they don't go down that route with it. But let's talk the mid-credit scene, because I had no idea what to expect from this. As like people were saying that it was crazy. I thought, oh my god, are they going to show clips of like the X-Men films or Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films? Is the multiverse finally going to happen? I was even thinking stupid things like all these apocalypses that are happening and moons being destroyed. I was like, are we getting Galactus? Is this going to be a setup for Fantastic Four? I was going to all kinds of places with my theories as I was watching this, and it was just more variants. One of those variants is Richard E. Grant, though.
Exactly. There we go.
I really wish he wasn't dressed as he was, but it's Richard E. Grant, and I'll allow it. It's fine. But I'm more perplexed. I'm interested to see sort of this like motley crew of characters that we've got now in the next episode. What we've got, like a warrior Loki, we've got like Richard E. Grant thespian Loki, we've got Kid Loki, and then a crocodile Loki. By the looks of it, like the animal psychic, there they are.
Oh, I didn't even see there was a fourth one. Oh my god,
it was incredible.
The crocodile? What? That was the best.
I missed it completely.
You were just like zoning in on Richard E. Grant's package right now, weren't you? In those yellow iPhones. Look at those. That's going to be everyone's Halloween.
It's a pronounced package in that yellow.
But I'm like, I don't know if these are characters necessarily from the comic books. I know that the costume, it reminds me of WandaVision, actually, how you had that Halloween episode where both of them were dressed in like the old style crappy costume, not crappy in the comic books, but just cheap looking costumes.
How they look like now.
Show. Yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to seeing Richard E. Grant. He's an absolute national treasure. Love that guy. But I think I was a bit underwhelmed because I was hyping it up that it was going to be something completely insane, and it's just more variants. And I was just like, well, that's the whole concept of the show, really, isn't it? That, from the first episode, we knew that there's multiple variants out there, and we kind of just get the reveal that there's even more that we didn't see before. So it's fine, but I think I just went in with like insanely high expectations that I didn't feel were quite met by the mid-credit scene.
So I did a bit of digging today because obviously I don't know my Loki history. Richard E. Grant's character name is Classic Loki, which is obviously by the costume, and I did say I'd done a bit of digging that I knew he was going to be in the show. I said in episode 2, I thought it was going to be him pulling off the cloak, and Richard E. Grant was an older Loki, and would have been great. But seeing how miserable Richard E. Grant looked as this classic Loki, I am all here for it. If anyone's seen Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, he has the most random cameo of the entire year. I literally think he was just at a studio, and there's just a random scene at a nightclub, and he's just there on the table next to them. Comes over, says 2 lines dialogue, and goes. Like, was he? Daniel Craig photo is like, were you just at the studio for a day? But he's drunk at it, and Richard Grant is fucking wonderful as he always is. So that's a big thing about watching that film is the Richard Grant cameo. But I'm just buzzing. I don't know what I think. It's just because of how he looks. The horns on the head, the ridiculous. The fact there's an alligator. It's not a shark, it's an alligator. And I don't know, might get my comics, but people are waffling saying that is it related to Frog Thor and all this weird stuff. I don't know what that even means. But
oh god, is it
Yeah,
Beta Ray Bill or something? Is it?
I don't
Beta Ray Bill or something? I thought he was going to be in the next Thor film, but I might be wrong. I'm not sure.
There's loads of different. The other thing is they're calling him boastful Loki. The one on the left, he's holding Mjolnir. He's holding a version of Mjolnir. So
nice.
I'm very intrigued. So just this weird setup of misfits, and he's called Kid Loki in the middle, who's probably got not much, but just look at Richard E. Grant. I'm sold on the rest of the series. I don't know if he's miserable to play it, but I think it was this big moment where I think because we knew Loki was going to. But the fact he woke up, I was like, they could have just woke him up in a desert or anywhere, but the fact is these guys waiting for him as well. I think it's a really big thing, and I think that leads me to the next big question: is are they in some kind of desolate, not like Davy Jones's locker, but where does that little stick take them? Does it send them to a place? Are they in some afterlife? I don't know, but I'm curious. But they're clearly waiting. Something big's going to happen, and are they going to be searching for Owen Wilson? I guess we'll find out a week, but I just loved it. It was something ridiculous and wacky that I think Tom Hiddleston said in interviews, this show is going to get weird, and I think it's going to be all this stuff that does it even more.
And Biovari says that the 3 human characters are from the comics as well, so that's good that they're honoring the comics in that way as well.
Nice. The 3 or the 4 or 4?
He says the 3 human characters. So the jury's still out on the jury's still out on the alligator. We don't know if the alligator's from the comics. Maybe he is.
Is it a crocodile? Is it an alligator? I have no idea.
Anyway, it's a real one. Imagine they made a real kid hold an alligator.
I've held one once, but it was tiny, so it's not that big. Anyway, it's crocodile. Anyway, that was fun. I liked it. I really liked it. So first of all, I didn't know there was a mid-credit scene. Obviously, I always keep watching just in case, because you know what Marvel's like.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, but yeah, I really liked it. But I know nothing about this at all. I know nothing about these characters. Don't know what they're going to do. They obviously all look like Loki variations in some sort of way, but maybe this is a place where they've just put all the Lokis. But obviously, I feel that's a really bad idea because they'll just constantly plot stuff. I'm curious to see what they're going to do. I do want to. I can't wait to see more. I'm glad they've sort of thrown in a few more characters with a couple of episodes to go because I feel like it does need to do even more in this final 2 episodes. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I knew nothing about the fact there was going to be this mid-credit scene. As I say, it's the first one, so it's great to see something this strange. But I had no expectations, so I really enjoyed it. I'm baffled by it, to be honest with you, but I love seeing Richard E. Grant, even his, as I said before, pronounced package, but yeah.
So can you wait till the multiverse properly opens up and then we've got Richard E. Grant in this and in Logan as well. So that's quite a neat little tie in there. There's one other reference as well that I wanted to bring up. I forgot to mention it earlier when we're talking about Owen Wilson. It's a really quick line in the episode, but I think it's probably a setup for stuff to come. There's a line that Owen Wilson says when he's talking about the people that they bought in, the TVA as a company or whatever it is have bought in. He says we bought in Kree, Titans, and vampires. And I thought there's your setup for Blade right there. We've got vampires officially in the MCU now. So just wanted to mention that because that's the only other thing that I think we haven't discussed in the episode. I think we've moved through this at a pretty brisk pace tonight, actually. There's another comment here from Biovari. The background looked like New York. I think there was the ruin of the Stark Tower on the right side of the screen.
Oh, Christ.
I don't know if we got it on the thumbnail. Can we bring up the thumbnail once again? Can we confirm this theory?
It could be.
We've got clouds. We've got clouds. We know
I've got it on a separate screen. It does look like it possibly.
Oh, that could be cool then. I mean, that goes back to the time of Loki's failure then. Another reminder of that, where he tried to take over in Avengers. So many questions. We've got 2 episodes left, so hopefully they tie everything up in a nice, neat little bow. But I think that's pretty much everything we can say. If you guys got any more things to say, or if not, we'll just round it off.
I think I'm all Loki out for this week. I'm very excited for next week. I think because I wasn't a fan of last week, I was still on board with the series. I said that I didn't enjoy last week's episode, but The writing was good in it, and I was still on board. Now with everything insane that they've done this week, I'm very excited to watch it. It'll be 8:00 on the dot next Wednesday. Still getting used to Wednesdays. I keep thinking it's bloody Fridays. It's not like Loki's out today, and it's not good for the system. I don't like the fact they're changing it, but I'm 100% still in, and I'm really excited to see what comes next, and if Kang is really going to be this show's Mephisto.
So I'm Team Mephisto, you're Team Kang, aren't you? Like that's our theory. So we'll see who gets introduced first. It's probably going to be Kang because we know that he's going to be in Ant-Man 3, so that makes more logical sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that will do it for our thoughts on Loki then, and we want to hear your thoughts as well. So we've had some people commenting tonight, but if you're just discovering this now, do still comment, reply to all of your comments, and obviously be sure to like, share, and subscribe as well. We're here for the next 2 weeks talking Loki, and Marvel's not going anywhere. Not just that, but of course next week Black Widow is finally released, so we will be doing a review on that. I think we're aiming for Thursday for a review for that, but obviously follow us on our social medias, which we'll bring up in just a second to get times and everything when we go live for that. It's going to be so nice to get that film. I always mention it purely for the fact that I never have to watch that trailer ever again. I don't even know if they're in the process of releasing more trailers and more TV spots for it. I don't want to see any more footage from that film. I'm quite happy to just go and see it, but we'll be there next week for that. It's finally nice to get new films for it. And of course, Loki, as we've mentioned, the next 2 weeks, we're live every Wednesday at 8. Oh, no.
Next week, we may not be 8 p.m.
Yes.
Little thing called the Euros, people. It could be earlier in the day at 6, 7-ish, 5-ish, who knows, but there's a 90% chance England are playing next Wednesday at 8 p.m. So, as always, you know what we're going to do? We're going to plug our social medias to find out when you do want to watch our Loki videos, and it doesn't clash with the Euros. There is, I know one in the comments says they're German, so I'm not going to bring them yesterday, but obviously Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, letterbox.com/Cinema Savvy, obviously TPub is right in the description below. But as I said, social medias, we'll let you know when we're going to be live on both of these, Facebook and Twitter. So now is honestly the best time for us to tell you that to follow us on there. And of course, Black Widow, that will be next Thursday. We are set on that. Nothing's going to jump in. So we're excited to, as Chris said, finally watch the film. I think that and No Time to Die are the two big ones where like every trailer in existence was done. Wonder Woman was one of the same ones. So I think when the Kingsman trailer comes up, that'll be the last bit of trailer PTSD for this year, December 22nd, apparently. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I can say. What about you, Neil?
No, pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, very much enjoying Loki. I think it's going very, very well. They've done an incredible job of making it weird, unpredictable. The writing's been very, very good, and I think I tweeted something along the lines of the writing's been good in the sense that it keeps you going, keeps you entertained within the episode itself, whilst making you want more and wonder what's going to happen next, without it feeling like it's just setting up for something that's coming next. It's done extremely well. I think they've done I think Kate Harry's done an incredible job.
Absolutely. And once again, thank you, Neil, for jumping on tonight with us, talking Marvel. It's always good fun having you on, mate. I'm going to leave George with this because this is out of my territory, and we're going to end on this, stir the pot a little bit. I had to watch Germany win for years, so no problem.
Hey, Mesut Ozil's one of my favourite players. I'm fine. I'm a big Ozil fan until they racially excluded him.